Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Monday, July 10th. I almost said June. It's July. July 10th. We are here live. It is a free-for-all today. Anything goes. Normally, I don't have guests on Monday, but we have a guest on today. We're working on getting him in right now. So we will be joined here very shortly. I've got a couple other things I might want to talk about today after the guest. Other than that, it's a free-for-all. Anything goes today. If you have a question, a comment, a topic, go ahead and jump in now. 855-950-3835. We'll get to those calls here in just a little bit. I do want to bring on our guest. We are being joined by Evan Shelley. He's the co-founder and CEO of TruckParkingClub.com. Evan, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Well, great to have you here. Good morning. So before we get started on the important stuff, I notice you were or maybe still are in Orlando. Is that true?
So I am actually in South Florida now. I lived in Orlando for 5 years, and I moved to South Florida last fall.
Got it. Okay. I lived in Orlando for about 14 years, so familiar with the area.
Yeah, Orlando's great.
Yeah, so let's talk about TruckParkingClub.com. Let's just jump in. What is this?
TruckParkingClub.com is a network of truck parking locations across the U.S., and those locations are made up of business owners like trucking companies, tow truck companies, trailer leasing companies, self-storage companies, anything kind of in and around logistics involved in some way. That is the majority of the locations. And what Truck Parking Club does is it connects truckers to those truck parking locations easily through our platform at truckparkingclub.com or our mobile apps. And what we focus on is helping truckers save time and fuel by efficiently finding and reserving truck parking across the U.S. That's our mission. That's how we orient everything. We want to help truckers have one platform to go to find and reserve truck parking in real time and know you have a spot reserved that's along your route that helps you get further down the road.
So I love this idea. We'll go back because over the years, every time this issue comes up, we talk about it on the show. We have a theme here. You know, when you talk about business, you're almost always talking about problems. Our theme here is really, really try to solve your own problems before you go to the government. That's like that's our basic premise here, and it made me crazy every time I heard this parking issue. Well, the government's got to do something about this. No, they really don't, and we'd rather they not. That's just my approach with just about everything. The other thing, and I'm wondering how much pushback you get on this, because as soon as paid parking came around, forever there was almost no such thing, maybe one or two truck stops around the country, and it's becoming a more regular thing, and there's a lot of complaints about it. And I said, look, if you want to solve the parking problem, pay for parking. Really, the fact that you expect to get parking everywhere free and just freak out if somebody offers paid parking. Why was that such a problem? Well, I guess they believe it took spots away from the non-paid, but in my opinion, that's how you solve a problem. Give somebody a financial incentive to solve it, and it will get solved. And that's what you're doing here. So it seems like you're growing pretty fast. I've been waiting for something like this to hit the market. How are things going so far?
Yeah, so really quickly, I want to address what you just said about the paid parking. And, you know, what we do currently is paid parking only, but we are actually going to be we will show availability of free parking. That is something we will be rolling out over the next few weeks that we're very excited about.
I love that.
And it will actually show availability. Yeah, it'll actually show availability. It won't be like we think there's some parking there or we think this location exists. So we're working on getting that right, and that will roll out soon. But on top of that, you know, we would love to go to these business owners and get them to add their spaces for free, because we could make we could make money through advertising or something of that nature if we could just add these locations. Unfortunately, none of these business owners or landowners are going to offer up their properties for free. So to create this supply of truck parking that never really existed before, all the property owners, all the business owners are asking for some type of payment to be able to park at their properties. So, we wish we could do it for free. We wish we could add these locations for free because we would find out a different way to make money on it through the traffic, through advertising. But unfortunately, that's just not an option. And if we want to add more truck parking, that's really how we're doing it.
I completely agree. And I am actually a proponent of just paying for parking. We're willing to pay for every other service we need to run our business. And for some reason, we don't want to pay for this. And I'm not sure why, because real estate's expensive. It takes a lot of space to park trucks. It takes a lot of maintenance of the lot. And here's another problem, and it's why I'm sure business owners want to get paid. Ask Walmart about their experience with this. Walmart has always allowed trucks and RVs to park in their lots overnight if the local ordinances allow it, and a lot of places in the country can't. But a lot of Walmarts have then gone on to ban trucks because of damage and trash and, no accountability. So I do believe that just having a good system, paying for parking, and it's not like you have to pay every night. I mean, we all know that this parking issue doesn't hit you every night, but to have another option and a paid option, well, what does that also do? It frees up more of the traditional parking spaces. So the more people who are willing to say, look, I'd rather just pay, know I have a spot, know what I've got when I get there. I don't have to look around. I don't have to wait and waste time. The more people that do that, the more traditional spots gets opened up anyway, and it really starts to solve this.
Yeah, and what I would say is for overnight parking in particular, we're like your third best option at truck parking clubs. So you have the truck stops and the rest stops that you go and try to find free parking at. And then for one night, overnight, we are kind of the third best option in a lot of instances. Some people just prefer to use our lots over truck stops and rest stops for various reasons. But for most people, getting that free parking makes sense, and I understand that completely. Where we provide a ton of value is if you need to leave your truck, if you need to leave a trailer for multiple days, that's where you can go to truckparkingclub.com and book 2 to 10 days very easy and conveniently at a location that probably wasn't available publicly.
Very nice.
And that's where we see that we can provide a ton of value. And on top of that, we're not against free parking, as I've said. We think there needs to be more of it built. It's just, if you look at what states and federal is saying about rolling this out, how many spaces they're going to add over the next 5 or 10 years, it puts a very small dent in the greater issue of the shortage. So it would be great if they would add more, and then ultimately that only solves one part of the problem, just overnight. It doesn't solve multi-night.
Correct.
So if you need to drop a trailer, it doesn't solve that problem.
One of the things we see too, local truck stops, a lot of times you'll see they'll have arrangements with people who run out of that area, and they'll do some of this parking at truck stops, and they'll allow some trailer drops, and it's usually arranged, at that local. And you see a lot of complaints about that. If drivers see that trucks are being parked there for multiple days or trailers are dropped, then again, everybody's pissed off because there's not enough spots and now somebody's taking one for several days. So there's another way that your service can free up the parking that's already there. Get more of that away from truck stops. Every time we've talked about this, a lot of our callers will say, look, you just have to be a little out of the box. You have to think a little differently. You've got to find those places that maybe you don't traditionally park. And again, we always talk about solving this problem, yourself. It always drove me crazy is when you're looking for a parking spot, there's space everywhere. You just can't use it. It's not that there just isn't any space. Yeah. You look around and it's all over the place. There's just no way to use it. So I think this is just a fantastic service. So one of the other things I came across, you talked some about amenities. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so on our platform, our properties can range from high security facilities with electric fences and showers and restrooms and food trucks, all the way to vacant lots that are just gravelled and just adequate for dropping a trailer or an overnight parking with no amenities. So what we do on our platform is we want to make sure that the trucker understands what they're going to get at each and every location very clearly, the location that they're booking, what they're going to get, because we have truckers that have high value loads. Obviously, they're going to need a higher security facility. So we make it very clear which ones are available. We also have a customer service line made up of former truckers and still CDL holders that when you call in to Truck Parking Club, you're talking with a trucker. So they're going to be able to talk with you about each and every location and understand what you're going through and understand what you're looking for and talk with you about what they believe to be the best fit for you at that point in time. So amenities play a big part in just helping the trucker quickly determine if that spot is going to be adequate for what they need.
Interesting, because that everybody who's driven a truck has faced that issue. You call ahead, even for a dock, a delivery, whatever, and you don't always get the right answers about, what kind of issues you might face getting in there with the truck. So it's nice to know that that's been thought through. It looked to me like you came from the real estate side of things. Is that correct?
Yeah, real estate is my background.
Okay. So how did you end up with the truck parking issue? How did that happen?
So I was doing commercial and industrial land development deals for the last several years. And back a couple of years ago, I came across a property that was zoned industrial and ultimately found that it was going to be a good location for truck parking. And I went to that municipality, and even though it was zoned industrial, they told me that I couldn't put truck parking there. And from everyone I had talked to, they were saying there isn't enough truck parking. There's a huge demand for it. You need to build more of it. But then this municipality is telling me that I can't. So that got me very, very curious about what's really going on here. And then from there, started talking with people in the space, talking with truck parking operators, talking with people in logistics about the issue and what are people doing to solve it, and really where, what's the best way to ultimately help solve the problem of creating more parking to alleviate the shortage. And so, long story short, I came up with Truck Parking Club, where, just as you mentioned, there's a lot of space out there, and we help those property owners put their space on our platform, and we help truckers easily find and reserve those spaces to help them save time and fuel to get further down the road in the direction that they need to go, rather than looking for free parking and then also looking for paid parking.
Right.
Because it's both a struggle, because there really isn't a platform that clearly tells you, hey, there's 8 spots available here now. You can book it now. So we're just hyper focused on helping the trucker easily find and reserve that parking to really help, save, like I mentioned a couple of times, save time and fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the way things like that come about. Earlier, it mentioned you're getting ready to roll out this availability of free space. Is there any? I would have to believe there's some sort of technology that's making that easier.
Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail. We've really kept it quiet until the last couple of weeks. Something we worked on for a while, and we're able to roll it out because of hardware, and it's just something that we will be able to make a very formal announcement probably in the
Excellent.
next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, good.
But now, as of right now, I've been mentioning it subtly on a
Yeah.
few podcasts and things, but haven't gotten into full detail yet.
Yeah, I've seen some, kind of technology coming, and I've seen some technologies used. We have it, I'm sure not the same, but one of the big improvements they made here at the airport, like you can see open spaces without going down every single lane. They've just used technology to make it a little easier. And I figured at some point we should get something like that to help with this problem. So, you've said this is really simple, easy enough that if a driver decided, hey, this sounds interesting, I want to look for a spot tonight, they could get signed up and be looking for a spot that quick?
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
All right.
We have bookings all across the U.S. every single day, from L.A. to Vegas to Dallas to Atlanta to Newark, New Jersey. Every single day, all across the U.S. with new customers coming on, making bookings every single day. We are very focused on making the product simple, and easy to use. Not flashy, but
Right.
simple and easy for a trucker to use.
We love that. So walk us through. If somebody says, hey, this sounds interesting, I want to give this a try today, what do they do next?
If you have a smartphone, I would say go to your app store, whether it's Google Play or the Apple App Store, and type in Truck Parking Club. You're going to see our app. You would download the app. From there, you're going to go into the app, and you're going to immediately see our map of all of our locations. Let's say you're in Dallas. So you could scroll in on the map, or you could search Dallas, and you'll see, I believe we have 4 or 5 locations in Dallas currently. And from there, click the location. You're going to see photos. You're going to see amenities available. You're going to see number of spaces available. And then from there, let's say you want to book for 5 days. You would go to billing options and click per day. You would select whether you're starting, let's say, tomorrow through the end of the week. You would select those days. Then you would put make, model, plate number of your tractor and trailer. And then it's going to tell you, okay, here's your total. You would then click book, put in your card information, click book, and you are booked. The average customer takes 2 to 3 minutes to book.
That's pretty simple. One other thing I thought of, does the app allow for any kind of reviews?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So there's 2-way reviews, just like Airbnb. So if a trucker wants to leave a review about a property, which they do, they will leave the review. And if the property owner wants to leave a review about the trucker, they can do that as well.
I love that. Some accountability on both sides.
That's right.
Excellent. All right. Well, Evan, we like I said, this issue's been coming up for years. We've always said there are better solutions than just waiting for the government to do this. And if we get out there and get active and proactive and find your own solutions, but it's nice when something like this hits the market. So I was excited about this. We're glad to have you on. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it. Please let me know if you ever want to talk truck parking just in general.
Absolutely.
I live it every single day. So
yeah, let's
I would like to contribute in any way that I can.
Well, let's. You've got an upgrade coming soon, so yeah, let's get you back on the schedule and talk about your upgrade and just parking in general.
Excellent. That sounds great. I
Fantastic.
appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks for calling. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care. All right. It's time for a free-for-all. Phone lines are open. Like I said, I have a couple topics, but if we've got calls, I'll go to those first. Let's get started in New Jersey today. Trevor, welcome to the program.
Hello, Kevin. How's it going?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Oh, well, I wanted to talk a little bit about how speed affects fuel economy and a little bit about getting into the business of trucking.
Okay. What's on your mind?
So over the weekend, I went for a motorcycle ride with my buddy. I want to say it was about 130 miles round trip through the rolling hills. We went out to a place, it was about 65 miles from our house. We went out there. We did about 55 all the way out. I burned, I think it was like a quarter tank of fuel. On our way back, we did a lot faster than that. And we did the same route all the way back, and I burned half a tank of fuel on top of that quarter tank I burned getting there.
Wow.
So that kind of shocked me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was about 50% faster on our way back than the way we went out there. So that's huge on what would have been about 1,000 pounds altogether for just me, my bike, and a little bit of gear I had on it. So that should kind of raise some eyes about the bigger trucks and slowing down in the bigger truck to save fuel.
Yeah, it's really just physics, and we talk about this all the time. Everything we measure to measure fuel economy, we're measuring physics. Everything we do to improve fuel economy, we have to affect physics in some way. So all of those things we talk about, there's 4 really in physics that we talk about. So we have wind resistance, which is really number 1 at highway speed. The thing about wind resistance, aerodynamics, is that if you go up 10 miles an hour, it's not a small change. It's what we call an exponential change. You don't add to figure out how much worse it gets. You multiply. So every time you go faster, you're multiplying the forces that cause you to burn fuel. Wind resistance being the big one. Rolling resistance, wheels against the ground, is second usually. Then mechanical resistance from the engine itself. We put oil in an engine because it has friction. Yeah, and friction robs us of energy. So we need to improve that potentially. Friction through the entire driveline, all the gears, all of that robs us of fuel economy. So when we go faster, all of those things increase exponentially. So the rule of thumb that has held true as an average, doesn't work in every case, but the rule of thumb that's held true forever really is for every 1 mile per hour you increase on a Class 8 truck, you will lose 1/10 of a mile per gallon in fuel economy. So if you want to go 10 miles an hour faster, you're going to lose 1 full mile per gallon, which is thousands of dollars a year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have somewhat of a kind of intermediate knowledge of how engines work and how all the friction and all that stuff kind of affect all the driveline and fuel economy and horsepower and all that stuff.
Here's something else we know, and we don't necessarily think of this, but on that vehicle, anywhere that we generate heat, that's lost energy. That's energy that was used not to propel the vehicle down the road. So engines get hot. There's nothing we can do about that. I mean, we can cool them, but that heat is always lost energy. The driveline gets hot. That's lost energy. The tires get hot. That's lost energy. The number that we've always been working on is only about 40% of the energy we burn from the fuel moves the vehicle down the road. Less than half. Half of the fuel we're burning is being wasted. It's being wasted for heat and inefficiency. The new super truck that was just tested finally broke the 50% mark. They actually, more than half of the energy was used to propel the vehicle down the road, and that's where the gains come from.
Yeah, well, that 50% gain on that fancy truck they have, well, can we make all trucks like that? I don't really think that's very feasible to be cost effective on the super truck. If we're to make all the trucks on the road, the super truck.
The idea of a super truck program, I'm not against. What I am against is how much of our money we spend on it. I think industry should be spending more. I think we should stop handing out taxpayer dollars for stuff like this. But yeah, the super truck programs end up costing tens of millions of dollars, with the idea being if we develop new technology that can really save fuel and you apply it to millions of trucks on the road, then it does start to look like that money potentially could be well spent. I just wish, again, the industry would spend more money instead of the government spending money. Many of the things that, we did something similar to this. Back in 2008, we built our signature truck. And it was kind of the same thing as the Super Truck program. We did things that people either said, oh, that'll never work, that doesn't make sense. What turns out, the biggest thing people said, oh, that's stupid, that doesn't make sense, was when we converted that truck to a 6x2 instead of a 6x4. So we had 3 axles, but only 1 drive axle instead of 2. And that improves fuel economy. And everybody said, oh, that's the goofiest thing ever. That's available on every truck made now. The OEMs now do it. They did it way better than we did. They have, automatic leveling and traction control, but we were able to prove the concept. And that's what those programs are for. You try things, you experiment, you focus just on fuel economy, and we were able to develop several things just in our little program.
Okay. Can we switch topics and go to getting into the business of trucking?
Sure. What's on your mind?
So right now I'm a company driver. In about 2 years, I want to go get my own truck and go work for Landstar. And I want to have a relatively better idea of what I need to do to get myself in a position to basically have a good foundation of jumping into being an owner-operator and the whole thing that goes along with that. Because I know there's risks. Sometimes it's a little scary to think about, but I want to jump into it and give it the best shot I can give it. And I know talking to you and getting advice from you is the best shot I'm going to get to making this actually work.
Yeah, the good news about this, I can make kind of a crazy claim that if you just do certain things right in the right order, that the risk of failing at this we can get that risk to almost zero. Really, if we think this through, if we plan it through, if we set things up right, the risk becomes almost zero. One of the ways we can get started on this idea right now is to start to calculate your risk in doing this. And one of the things I need to know for that, we can approach it 2 ways. We can either approach it, if you know this number, how much you have to earn to pay your bills every month, just to pay the bills, no extras, just to, keep the lights on and a roof over your head or whatever your situation is. If you know that number, we can start with that. If you don't know that number, we can probably start with how much you're earning right now. So do you know how much you've got to make?
I kind of already crunched the numbers actually over the weekend. I had a little time to do that. It's somewhere around about $2,000 a month.
Excellent. And so
I think that's relatively low.
It is. And that's important, and it's good. That gives me, without asking you many more questions, I can get your risk of starting this to almost zero.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Now, I have people come to me all the time that are making $80,000, $85,000, $90,000 as a company driver, and they've kind of ended up in a lifestyle where they need that much money. That is a whole different issue. I can't guarantee anybody's success at that point. We could, put together a plan and crunch numbers, but it would involve a lot more risk of failure at that point. So I have a whole program on how to do this step by step. I don't think it's available right now. We're actually in the process of merging some of our websites, and it's possible that course isn't available right now. You said you've got a 2-year window, so you will definitely want to take that course. It's
right. Taking
that course would be like me trying to talk to you for the next 40 hours. I mean, that's how much material I've put into that course. I cover everything about startup, getting your books in order, crunching all of these numbers, and it sounds like you've already done a pretty good job of that. So at some point, we'll make that course available again, and you're going to want to take that. Already, we're off to a good start because you know your numbers, your monetary needs are pretty small. That makes this much, much easier. Yep. And you're planning. So I will already put you in the top 90%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's that easy to make it to the top 90%. You've put some work into this, but it wasn't that hard, was it?
No,
It's not.
it's stuff
But
that I was kind of taught growing up.
yeah, but that alone, just the fact that you did those things puts you in the top 90%, because 90% of the people that come and ask me about this haven't done that yet. All they want to know is, what truck should I be buying? They want to tell me about the truck they're already looking at buying, and they've done none of this work yet. That's normally what I deal with. So this makes things much, much easier. Now, what else could you be doing? In the program, I have you do a couple things you've already done. One, we look at what you just did. How much money do you need just to pay the bills? So we know what number we have to hit each month to get started on this. And then I also have you calculate your net worth. So between those two numbers, net worth is really the easiest way for me to describe net worth. And you may know what it is, but a lot of people don't. If we sold everything you own, everything, I mean, you're going to be standing in the street with some clothes on your back, basically. So we sell everything you own at market value. You know, you sell vehicles at market value. Everything else goes like it's a lawn sale, whatever. If we sell everything you own, we pay off everybody you owe money to. How much, if anything, is left? That's really what net worth is. If you had to sell everything you own, pay off everybody, how much cash would you be standing there with, if any? And there are lots of people in our country, especially right now. This number gets worse every month when I check it. There are lots of people in our country who have a negative net worth, meaning if they sold everything, they would pay people off and they would run out of money before they got done paying people off. And then they would have zero. That's a bad place to be. But it's a good idea to identify that. I encourage everybody to figure out what your net worth is and then track it. Really, the whole point of any financial planning, if we bring it down to basics, the whole point of any financial planning is to increase your net worth. That's the whole point. Why aren't we tracking that number so we know if it's what we're doing is working or not? Whether we own a business or not, even if you're an employee, you should be tracking your net worth. That tells us your financial picture. So, and then I do both of these numbers for startup because if you have a big net worth and maybe you also have big living expenses, well, the big net worth can help minimize risk too. We could have a plan that says, hey, look, you might not make enough money at this in the first year. It always takes a while, years, to get really efficient. Nobody is as efficient as they can be in the first year. It just never happens that way. I know people that are on their 20th year and they're still nowhere near efficient. But if you work towards it, we can get more efficient each year. We build better relationships. The profit goes up. So if somebody has enough net worth and they're willing to risk it, I'll say, we're not going to make enough money in the first year to pay all your bills. You have too many bills. But if you're willing to risk some of your capital, maybe in the second or third year we can reach those numbers. There's a lot more risk in that. If somebody doesn't have much of a net worth, but they've got really low living expenses, then that makes it easier. Ideally, if you've got a nice big net worth and a nice small living expense, then that's when I can just about guarantee that this will work.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Oh, I guess I'm going to have to sit down and really figure the net worth out.
Have you ever heard me talk about mint.com?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. So here's the easiest and best way to get your net worth. And then once you do the work up front, then you'll be able to track your net worth all the time and it will take almost no work. You won't have to keep going back and doing this. There are some apps that do this as well, and Mint.com does have an app. There are some other apps and services. Okay. I'm testing one right now that's using AI, but my guess is Mint is going to start using AI here real soon anyway. So my recommendation is Mint. It's free. It's always been free. As far as I can tell, it always will be. Here's the way it works. all of your financial data today is online somewhere. All of your credit card data, your credit card accounts, they're all online. So people used to say, oh, I don't want to sign up for Mint because I have to put in all my passwords and I'll be at risk. All of your data is already at risk. Forget it. Every insurance company, every doctor, all of that stuff is online somewhere and it can all be hacked. So we're not doing anything here that puts any of your accounts at risk. Not any more than they already are. So you log into Mint, you create an account, and then you start attaching all of your financial data. So you put in your checking account, and Mint pulls all the transactions in and starts to categorize them. You put in your savings account, so it will list that as an asset. You can even put in vehicles, and if you put in all the information, Mint will use a service like Kelley Blue Book to keep the value of your vehicle current. And then if you have a loan against the vehicle, you attach that loan account. Now Mint knows the loan and the value of the vehicle every day. Now it can calculate that as part of your net worth. You can put in your address. It will use a service like Zillow to keep the current value of your home every day. Then you put in your mortgage account and it knows your mortgage balance. So once you get all, you can put in retirement accounts, investment accounts, vehicles, properties, everything that affects your net worth can be put into Mint. And then once it's all in there, all you have to do is open up your app or your account and you can see your net worth, and it changes every day. And from then on, you track it with very, very little work. Update some accounts now and then, and that's about it.
Oh, that sounds like it makes everything easy.
Really easy. The work is all in the beginning. So I tell people, and it can be frustrating. You got to go find all these logins, and it is work. But I tell people, pick a weekend or a couple days off, go someplace you really like, the lake, the mountains, wherever, and just sit down and do this. Take whatever, account information you need or whatever, sit down over a weekend. And once you get this set up, this is a really powerful way of monitoring your financial picture.
Okay, I guess I'm going to sit down this weekend and hammer all that out.
Perfect. And then
I know what my net worth is.
And then my next piece of advice, and then we'll send you off, and you should probably call me about once a week while you're doing this. And there's all kinds of things we could talk about and plan. The next thing you should be really focused on, you're currently a driver, right?
Yep.
How many business books have you listened to in the last 30 days?
In the last 30 days, none.
Okay.
But I have listened to a couple books I think you've recommended before. I remember one of them was about negotiating.
Yeah.
It was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I think there was a couple others.
Good. So let's think about this for a second. There are thousands of business books, thousands. I mean, I have lists, but there's even my lists would be hundreds, technically thousands of books long. And for me to sit down and try to rate them all would be difficult. So I do put out lists, but let's think about this for a second. The average book, I think, is probably about 6 hours, 6 to 8. Okay. So you can listen to most business books in one day of driving. One day. And you've read a whole book on business. So without even really pushing it, we could easily listen to 2 books a week. You've got a 2-year timeline here. You would be able to consume almost or more than 200 books between now and then. How much would you know about business if you read or listened to somewhere between 100 and 200 books on business?
Quite a bit.
Yes, and that's what you should be doing. That is one of the, books. Some people will go, oh, but that's a lot of money for books. It's really not. It might seem like it, but it is the cheapest education you could ever possibly get.
It is.
Get yourself an Audible
I paid
account.
for education, and it's.
And if
I already have a Amazon Prime account. I think it's all linked. I just signed in with my Amazon account, and it linked right to Audible.
But what you want to do is you want to get on one of the Audible subscription programs. So let me go see what they're offering right now. So what you do, and I still have this, and I end up with tons and tons of book credits because let's see what they've got. Might have to log out to be able to see. So the way most of their programs work is you pay a monthly fee. I'm just trying to see what they have. I don't see what programs they have. And then you get so many credits. It looks like if you're a Prime member for just $14.95 a month, you actually get 2 credits. The reason this is such a good deal, some audiobooks that I've listened to are $30 and $40 for the book. Some are 15, some are, 19, some are 10, whatever. Book prices are all over the board. But a credit always gets you a book, no matter how expensive the book is. So you're paying $14.95 for 2 credits. What you're really getting are 2 books, no matter what those book prices are. And then I think you end up getting like 10% off, or there's some discount on all the other books you buy. So you're only going to get 2 a month on credits, and you're going to be reading 2 a week. So you're going to buy the others, but you get a discount on those too.
Right.
All right. Sounds like we've got a plan. Anything else I can help you with today?
I don't think so, Kevin. It's been nice talking to you.
All right.
Have a good rest of your day, Kevin.
All right. Thanks for the call. It's always enjoyable working with somebody who is already doing the right stuff. He's got a great plan there. And if he works this plan, he's almost guaranteed to succeed. Really. Let's go to Michigan. Don, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. It's Don. I'm in Michigan today, up here seeing Jim Fowler for 2 days worth of work, and then on to Pittsburgh Power. Well, and I can just say that all the stuff you talked about with that guy is just spot on. I'm living proof. I've done all that stuff right by your textbook.
Excellent. I love that. Tell Jim we said hey.
Will do. Yeah, my wife bought the course for me with the hard copy workbook, the DVDs, the CDs for Christmas for 2019. And I was only, 18 months into my truck driving as a company driver, which I thought, when I went in as a company driver, 6 months, I'll be ready to. I'm glad that it took this marinating time of the 5 years that I spent. My wife got to spend 2 years with me, and both of us in a company that took good care of us and let us go over the whole country and made it a quick, I noticed the guy said something about wanting to go to Landstar, and that's exactly what we did. So,
excellent.
It's really worked out well. I just got one question for you today, but before that, I'll tell you also too, my mentor, Steve, he met me in Indianapolis at Flying J yesterday.
Awesome.
And we downloaded the Profit Gauges software, and we put 6 settlements in there, and I've got an accordion file full of receipts. When I get checked into my hotel room this evening or this afternoon, I'm going to go to work on entering in those receipts and really see, what our income looks like. And it may look a little dark this first 2 weeks, but that's part of it. I'm just so excited to be on this track and doing this.
I'm excited for you, and to have somebody like Steve meet you personally and help you. Our software is pretty simple. I think you've seen that already, but it's like anything else. Mm-hmm. If you have somebody to just walk you through how to do it right the first time, that's an awesome advantage. So kudos to Steve. I know he helps a lot of people like that. But you can already see how simple that process is for putting in settlements. And settlements confuse everybody. They are just confusing. Some are worse than others. But once you can start to enter them into our software, they start to make a whole lot more sense. And you can see now how simple this process is, but how powerful it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. I completely could understand when you said your tax people will love you when you hand them your one-page P&L and say, here's my annual report, and they can just say, wow, your taxes are basically done for you.
The tax report itself, and you said hand it to them. We can even go one step better than that. You can just email it to them right out of the program.
PDF.
Send
them a PDF. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, right out of the program. You just email the PDF right to them. And really what it does, so for a sole proprietor, owner, operator, there is really one tax form that you add to your personal tax return. You fill out a Schedule C for the business, which is basically kind of like a profit and loss. But what we did with our software, and as far as I know, it is still the only software on the market that has this. The report that we print out for your tax preparer is basically the Schedule C filled out.
Wow.
That's we thought why not just that's where this data ultimately is going to end up in the Schedule C. So why don't we just lay out a report that is the Schedule C, and all they have to do is plug the numbers in right where they are. And we even explain on the report the two biggest mistakes we see tax preparers make because they don't understand trucking. They make mistakes on depreciation and they make mistakes on per diem. Those are the two big ones because the system of per diem and depreciation is different for owner-operators than most other businesses. And we see a lot of mistakes there. So not only does our report look just like the Schedule C, we clearly on the report explain those two issues and how they should be doing it.
Wow, that's great. I'm going to go back and listen to that. I think you did I'm pretty sure 2 shows, maybe 3 with that tax guy that came in and explained the Augusta rule several months back. I'm going to go back and pull them out of archives and listen to them when I get back on the road so that, and at that point I'll have put all my data in the profit gauges. I'll more of what he says will make sense to me. When I went to have my taxes handled this year with the lady who's always done my taxes, Steve said, good way to tell if she understands trucking taxes is just ask her how she depreciates a truck. Cause she says, oh yeah, I do taxes for a lot of truck drivers. Right. And she says, I think it's 5. She says, I think it's 5 years.
Run the other way.
No, it's a highway tractor. 3 years and 4 returns. Yeah. 3 years and 4 returns.
Correct.
That quickly let me know that I need to get back to that program and get my details out of that program so I can engage these people for handling. And mine gets a little bit. My wife inherited a couple of rental properties a couple of years ago when her mother passed away. So we got to add that element in and not just, but I'm so glad you guys are a resource out there for us, Kevin, to put us in touch with the right kind of folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about that. So I said on our tax report, we explain the 2 issues they tend to get wrong. And I said it was per diem and depreciation. And here's an example. Now, a lot of people might even ask the question, do you handle a lot of truck drivers or owner-operators? And she said yes. All that tells me is that's a lot of owner-operators that got their tax return done wrong because she think, I think it's 5 years. Well, first off, you shouldn't be thinking, you should know. And second, you're wrong. And here's why. This is why we know this is a problem. So the IRS has a huge section in the code on how to depreciate everything. Really, depreciation is supposed to be used for any item you buy for your business that lasts longer than a year. Well, first off, that can't work. Because a pencil sharpener might last me longer than a year, but I'm not depreciating it. You know what I mean? So there's always some confusion there because it's never really clear what we're supposed to depreciate and what we're supposed to expense. We would prefer to expense everything. We don't really like the depreciation system. It makes us wait to get our deduction. So what happens, though, you go to this list, and this list is huge. It's got all kinds of stuff on there for every business, every industry. You have to go look up how to depreciate something. Well, when an owner-operator is talking to their tax preparer, they refer to their vehicle as a truck, right? I'm a truck driver. I drive a truck. Well, there's where the problem starts. The IRS does not consider what you drive a truck. Steve used the correct nomenclature. They consider that to be a highway tractor. If you look up truck,
right.
Truck does exist, and it is a 5-year depreciation. But if you know that you are supposed to be looking up a highway tractor, then a highway tractor has a 3-year depreciation. We always want the shortest depreciation possible. We don't want to wait to get that deduction. We want to get it as soon as we can. So when she makes that mistake, and a lot of tax preparers do this, the IRS will never, ever question that, ever. They don't care. You didn't cheat to get any kind of an advantage. You did something wrong and created a disadvantage. Well, they don't care, so they never say anything about this. And I have watched guys go 10 years, 15 years with their tax preparer doing this wrong, and it's costing them money.
Wow. Yeah, I think Steve was telling me, and the visual I got on it is the truck that the IRS code is referencing is one of those trucks like Kevin was trying to do the drifting on the Michelin track down in South Carolina with. Just a box truck.
That's right. Yeah. And that's a 5-year property, which is fine, but that's not what we have, and we want to get our deduction as fast as we can. So, and then the other thing we explain on there is per diem, because there is a totally separate per diem system for anybody that's subject to hours of service. And it's very different. And if you don't know that system exists, then you're doing somebody's tax return wrong. And we see it all the time.
Yeah, I don't know that they were the company we drove for. When I called you and told you about, I was looking at changing companies when my wife was coming out of school, because this new company was going to let me train her. Well, they worked it out at the company I worked with to put my wife with Melody, one of your other callers, and let her spend 4 weeks with Melody being trained. But we had this great per diem program that, $69 a day, 50 crow fly miles away from the domicile yard, and it put the $69 per driver, so each for my wife and I, in the bucket. So every week we had about, $800 or $463 each on per diem when we go out for 28 days.
Nice.
It was a sweet program the way it worked. And I don't think my tax lady it was a box on the W-2 that she knew how to fill in on her software, but I'm not sure she fully understood it either. Kevin, I want to catch you though with this one question that I had.
Sure.
So I'm here at Jim's. I'm out running on the way back from the Freightliner dealer with some parts that he's going to be using. But before I came, I went to Summit Racing and bought some gauges. I bought a air pressure gauge for him to get into my drive tire airbags, so that I can save myself money on scale tickets by keeping that, knowing that pressure and knowing my gross weight. So he's going to install that for me. I also bought a transmission temp sensor, and I've got 3 cutouts on the dash. So the transmission temp sensor, he's going to try to put that in. He says there might be an I might end up having to return that. But over at Pittsburgh Power, when I get there Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for this week, they were going to put a boost gauge in, and my truck's the Aerodynamics 2019 Freightliner. So I think Eric was telling me the pyrometer is really more for the older pre-emission trucks, and it's just a lot of labor for what the pyrometer would give you. And you know how anyway, they said that Jim said, call Kevin and see if he thinks that the scan tool that they sell would be just as effective. I've got a 9-pin hole down there by my left foot on the firewall. He said it might provide you with the boost information you need, and then you would have one more port. And I thought, well, if I had that one more port, would you do it that way? Would you put the scan tool on it and then put something in that additional port that's going unused? Like, I was like, I wonder if it would be a diff sensor, or would both diffs run at the same kind of heat level? And something that Jim encouraged me to do, which we ordered it on Friday, was get a laser gun. And he said, just measure heat in components on the regular. Yep. And you will start learning, hey, that's out of line. That's low on oil. You can tell by, and I went on the Amazon, and they had this temp gun, 36,000 reviews with 4.5 stars, $20 bucks. I mean, that's an easy thing to use.
when I travel, that is my most used tool by far, my temp gun. Every time I get out of the vehicle, and if I'm getting fuel, if I'm stopping for a break, if we're stopping for the night, my gun sits right next to my seat. I just grab the temp gun, I walk out, I shoot the hubs, I shoot the tires, I might shoot the oil pan, the transmission, and you just do that over time, and you start to know what those temperatures should be. They'll vary depending on how heavy you were, the terrain, the temperature outside. But the more you do it, the more you get used to knowing what they should be, and you can catch a problem really early. And now back to the scan gauge. Here's how the scan gauge works. The scan gauge is an awesome tool for a lot of things. So let me give you one feature on the scan gauge. I don't talk about it a lot, and it does take a little bit of work up front to set it up. You got to sit down with the manual and set this up. But there is a reading on the scan gauge that if you take the time to put in the rate of the load you're on right now, let's say that load's paying, $2.15 a mile. You put that information in. If you are putting in your fuel ups correctly, and again, you just follow the instructions on how to set this up, you can drive down the road, and when you put that gauge up on the display, and you can display 4 gauges at once on the scan gauge itself. Each corner of the display you can put in, and you can change those readings anytime you want. So you could be looking at any...
So like a default setting to show you while you're rolling.
You set it up, and then while you can change that default as well if you want to look at different things. But one of the things I programmed into our scan gauge, the Scan Gauge KR, is profit per mile after fuel while you're driving.
Okay.
So when you're driving, let's say, like I said, you're making $2.15 a mile. While you're driving, the scan gauge is calculating how much fuel you're burning and the price of that fuel, and it will show you in real time, look, you're making $1.70 a mile after fuel. And if you slow down, oh, look, now you're making $1.82 after fuel.
And is that something, do you enter that? I'm constant. Now my entering into gauges has gotten harder because now I got to open the Landstar app and go through 6 screens to get down to my real net price on after the discount. And so it's not as efficient as I was. And, I know you've referenced that before. Got to be willing to do the hard work, which is tracking. I tracked my company truck for the last 90,000 miles before we got out of it.
There you go.
And so I'm really used to doing it. It's gotten a little bit more complicated. How does it get that data in the scan tool to know your prices? Something you enter?
Yes. So that's what I mean. You sit down, and I can't tell you exactly how. You're going to sit down with the manual. And like I said, before you start this trip, you're going to put in the rate you're getting on that trip. But if you're putting in your fuel ups on the scan gauge, then it already knows all the other numbers. So if you're just entering your fuel, and you don't have to enter your fuel ups into the scan gauge tool, but if you do, then you get this new piece of information while you're driving, which is profit per mile after fuel. Pretty cool number to watch.
Oh, yeah, I guess you put your what your total cost and how many gallons you bought, and it's got the 2 numbers it needs, and then then it takes one more number of miles and tells you your what'd you say, profit per mile after fuel?
Correct. Yep. That way you can see all day long how your driving is affecting your profit in real time.
Right. Well, I didn't want the stress of
let me go back to the other
window
thing
with Jim up here
about the scan gauge.
Okay.
So the scan gauge can pull data out of the ECM only. And when we talk about gauges, I would prefer if I have a manual pyrometer gauge, although on the new trucks it's not quite as important. I'd still really like to have it, and a manual boost gauge. I would prefer that.
So you would go with that manual boost?
If I can get it installed on the truck, and it's usually fairly easy, I would prefer a manual boost and a manual pyrometer. If I don't want to do that, and the ECM has the data, and most new trucks, the ECM has all of that data, then we can read it from the scan gauge. The scan gauge is going to give you every available gauge that is in that ECM. You know how if you order a truck, you could sit down and order a crazy gauge package that has everything, or you can get the bare minimum. Well, as long as that data is in the ECM, then the scan gauge can read it. So you can pick up all kinds of new gauges with the scan gauge, intake, air temp, there's just all kinds of stuff in there.
But can I get the electronic data, for the pyrometer data that I would have gotten with a manual? Because Eric said it's quite the job to put the pyrometer into one of these newer trucks, just because that's really about easier to do on the older trucks.
It is, because it's so much easier to get to the exhaust manifold or right after the turbo, depending on where we're going to put it in. So the pyrometer data will be in the ECM on this truck. So yes, you could just plug in a scan gauge and you're going to get pyrometer.
Okay, so I'll use the manual boost, and I'll pick up the scan gauge and set it up and have my pyrometer. What do you just Velcro it right onto your dash somewhere up there where from coming up is kind of push the cord back as far as you can? And
just mount it. It's really small. It's easy to mount. It's easy to see. The other thing, you can daisy chain scan gauges. So there's a connector cable you buy, and you can set a second scan gauge right next to it, and then you get 8 gauges all at once. So you just see 8 different things.
Oh, wow.
I know a couple of people that actually have 3 sitting next to each other, daisy chained, and they can see 12 gauges all day long.
Wow. Well, what I've been doing, in the course, I think you say when you're driving for fuel economy, you try to accelerate like you've got the egg under your accelerator, so you're accelerating gently. And I've been watching in between the trip meter and the leg meter on the odometer. There's a little green fuel track bar that runs across there, and trying to keep that up above the 7.5 to accelerating gently enough. And I didn't want the stress of coming up here and finding out that one of the receivers had a broken forklift and make me miss my window with Jim and then my next window with Pittsburgh Power. So I came up here empty, and I got 9.8 miles per gallon with my
awesome.
with my fleet truck.
Awesome.
I told you last week when I called, I got 9.2 on that trip across from California. It's 600 miles up here, but 9.8 miles a gallon. I don't feel like I'm out too much to come to such a couple of quality shops to get these things done, even if I didn't have freight. Now on the way home, I might find a load, because I don't care if it blows by an extra day.
Absolutely.
And then I've paid for all my fuel getting up here and back.
I think that was a smart choice. Don't risk these 2 stops will set you up to start saving money from day one. So get in, get it done. Don't take the chance at, like you said, missing an appointment, having to try to get back again. I think that was a really smart move.
Hey, Kevin, one more thing. My truck is 4 years old. And it seems like in the course you said when you want to go through and start replacing all the rubber, like hoses and stuff, that'd be something I would want to get on the radar at some point. Is 5 years?
Almost never. This has changed over the years. I do not see any deterioration much. Now, one set of lines we do replace, and it's around 750,000 miles, would be fuel lines. But most other stuff, rubber hoses, heater hoses, that kind of stuff, belts, the quality on those has gone up so much. And I'm not even just talking about newer trucks. I'll give you an example. The last truck I bought was a 99 Volvo. I bought it, when did I buy that truck? Probably around 2016. So when I bought the truck, it was already 17 years old. It had 700 and some thousand miles on it, but almost all of those miles had been put on as a team operation in the first 3 years. Then after that, it was bought by somebody who pulled RVs with it. And not RVs commercially, just pulled their RV with it. So now it was getting less than 3,000 miles a year put on it. And It was 17 years old. And I bought it and I said, as an experiment, I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to start driving it. And I'll see what fails and what I should have replaced. Almost nothing. Not a single hose was a problem. No belts were ever a problem. And I drove the truck for a couple of years and then sold it to one of my listeners who is moving hotshot kind of freight with it and has been for several years after that. Now, here's what did happen. None of the stuff that we expect, the rubber, the belts, the hose, none of that stuff ever caused me a problem, and a lot of it was original. What did happen, which was totally unexpected, and we could have never seen it coming, virtually every 12.7 Detroit I've ever owned, and I've owned dozens of them, all went to 1.2, 1.3 million miles, very, very few problems ever. And then I would usually get rid of them and replace them, but a couple I did an in-frame on at that point. This one now had just a little over 800,000 miles on it, and I was bobtailing, and I was decelerating, coasting, getting ready to pull into a parking lot, and I put a rod through the block.
Wow.
You'll never see that coming.
Wow.
It's just one of those things, and it just happens, and, now I'm looking for an engine. But the stuff that we used to think, would deteriorate and wear out over time, not so much anymore.
I went to a truck shop the other day in search of the gauges before they referred me to go to the Summit Racing place down on the south side of Atlanta. And they said what the guys at the parts kind of said, they were echoed really kind of, these engines are built tight. You say that sometimes on the program. We don't see a lot of oil consumption. We don't see people doing in frames, or we see people making it to 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 and then doing an in frame. They said a sensor will fail and crater the engine, not the actual. Does that make sense that they're just built to such tight specs now that they run better?
They are. There was a time not that long ago, every single diesel engine on the road burned oil. From day one, brand new, we expect it. We always have, for the most part. We would expect that a diesel engine, brand new or right after an in-frame, is probably going to burn a gallon of oil about 10 to 15,000 miles. And when it does, that's fine. We know that's a good, solid engine. That's not true anymore. Mm-hmm. These things will go 50, 60, 75,000 miles and just not burn a drop of oil. Well, haven't our cars been like that for a long, long time? Does anybody's car use oil anymore? Mm-hmm. A modern car.
Yes, it's uncommon, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, if you're, if you've got some old, 60s, 70s muscle car, it's going to burn oil probably. But trucks today just don't burn oil. That's how tight they are. And if they don't burn oil and we don't wear out the crosshatch on the cylinders, which we don't seem to be doing, then there's no reason to do an in-frame. We're almost at a point now where you just end up getting rid of the truck. I mean, we're just not doing in-frames.
Mm-hmm. I got a friend who's a company driver that I worked with, and he was telling me, hold it, don't do it for like the last 2 years. And then when I shared with him some numbers off some numbers that I had received, he's like, wow, dude. Now he's actually said, I'd like to buy that. I'd like to buy your truck when it gets to 1 million miles and you and your wife are ready to upgrade, because all the stuff you're doing, I want that truck.
Right. Oh, that's been a pretty common theme around here for years. Somebody will build a truck, like we talk about, and when it goes to sell, it sells quick and it sells to some other listener because they know it's got all the stuff they want.
Yeah, I've heard Bruce mention that a couple of times when he's been on the Power Hour with you and say, we just want you to know we got this truck. He's always maintained it right here. It's a fantastic truck. And I'm thinking, man, wouldn't it be nice to get one? But that's probably some of those aren't. We're kind of tenderfoots. We've grown up with automatics and the 12-speed auto shift for both my wife and I both, as long as we've been driving, and we really like this Freightliner, even though, now that Joel's on the consulting side, and for a fee we'll spec your truck for you and help you do the whole order and everything. That's in the front of my mind for when this truck wears out. Do we get the compounding turbo Volvo, which, that'll have that'll get me down to one of the callers that goes in before me 3 or 4 months ago. His was, I think, 35 or 37 cents a mile on the Gauges app. I said, hey, that pays the payment right there.
Absolutely. So one of the things that's changed in a good way. So when we talk about, perfect specs for fuel economy, it used to be that truck really didn't exist in the market. Nobody was speccing trucks really, really well for fuel economy. I shouldn't say nobody. There are a couple fleets. Maverick, for a while, we were, recommending buying their used trucks. They were spec'd so well. What's the
Mesilla Valley?
Mesilla Valley. That's exactly who I was trying to think of. But for the most part, if you wanted to buy the truck used, and there is a reason we want to buy a truck used, and I'll tell you what I consider the sweet spot to be. The problem was you also had to calculate in changing the specs, which could just get expensive. Be much better if we could just buy a used truck spec'd right. There were just so few of them. That's changing. And Volvo is really kind of the leader in this, because Volvo is finally helping people spec these things, for really good fuel economy right off the bat. So what that changes, there was a time where I got to the point where I was only buying brand new trucks. And I was doing it because I wanted very, very specific setups, and I couldn't find it on the used market, so I had to order them the way I wanted them. I would much, much rather buy a truck less than a year old but used. And they're out there. That is always the best bargain I've ever found. That will be the best value in a truck. When somebody buys a truck and for whatever reason gives it up in less than a year, that's the sweet spot for me on bargains. The problem is I couldn't find anything spec'd right less than it. It's hard enough to find a commercial truck that goes back up for sale in under a year. They're pretty rare. And then to find one that was under a year and spec'd right was almost impossible. I did it a couple of times. Now, though, that's going to be much, much easier to do. It's going to be much easier to find that really well-spec'd, almost perfectly spec'd Volvo. And occasionally, if you keep an eye out, you'll find one under a year, and it will be a real bargain.
And maybe Joel's invoice price to do that service for you will include helping you find that sweet spot truck like that. I don't know how much. I see him with his Facebook post, and he seems to be a pretty busy guy to me. And I don't know how much he has to do when he helps somebody source a truck.
It's one of those things where it certainly has to put some time into it. But it's one of those things you're not really paying him for his time right now. You're paying him for his time for the last 30 years. All the work he's done in the last 30 years makes finding that truck fairly simple for him. And some people will go, well, why are you going to charge me all that money? It's so easy. Well, it's only easy because of all the work he's put in over the last 30 years, and he should get paid for that.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna circumvent 2 months of research for you and take you to the top 2 spots where that's at, where people that'll check it and give you a reputable once over on it and tell you its condition and what have you. That's just one of them things. That's why I'm traveling to MD Alignment and traveling to Pittsburgh Power, because 4 years in KR University, I feel like that's a good investment.
Absolutely. So,
Kevin, thank you for the guidance. I'm gonna give me one of those scan tools, and I'm just gonna proceed on with the guys at Pittsburgh Power when I get over there to having that manual boost gauge in the one remaining hole that I'll have there.
Let me correct one thing. Start calling it a scan gauge, not a scan tool. Here's why. There is a category of tools called scan tools. And it's basically software that you would load onto a laptop and then plug into the truck to scan and look for codes and that kind of stuff. And those are referred to as scan tools. Ours is a gauge, so Scan Gauge and then Scan Gauge KR. So the Scan Gauge already existed on the market. We found it. I played around with it. Then we went to the company and said, hey, we've got some ideas. We can make this better and make it for Class 8 trucks. And that's where the Scan Gauge KR came about. It's really our product and somebody manufactures it for us.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll get one of those ordered when I get back home. And thanks again, Kevin, for everything, man. I really appreciate it. I learned, and I'm over here in the amen corner following the caller that was just on before me going, hey, I'm living proof here. I did all that stuff. Textbook. I went, 7 months ago, you said, go back through the course again. And we popped in the CDs, or actually my daughter moved them over to my iPhone for me so that we could listen to them, because the fleet truck we were in didn't have a CD player. Now the truck I bought from that company has a CD player, and I've actually got them in the truck with me to pop them in and listen to them again and see. But, on the fuel lines, Kevin, do you think, is that a very expensive thing to have done?
It can be
my truck's got 700,000 on it.
It can be on the newer trucks. And here's something else we have to be aware of, is that may already be changing. And what I mean by that is materials constantly get better. I just talked about some hoses we just never replace anymore. They just last forever. Mm-hmm. Tires, we used to say 5 years on a commercial tire, no matter what the tread depth is. We're changing that. Now it seems to be 7. These things don't fail at 5 years anymore. It's 7 is. So at some point, maybe we push that fuel line thing out to 1 million miles, or maybe we don't need to replace them yet. It's just something we constantly keep an eye on. But on all of the pre-emission stuff we were running, all the Series 60s, the N14s, all of those, we always recommended 750,000 miles. So it's one of those things where we might have to go back and take a look at this again.
Well, will the Hawkeye report help me identify that? They'll be looking into that.
Yep.
Okay. And that's on the radar for Wednesday, Thursday.
And Pittsburgh Power also knows other ways to give you some advice in that. They can look at the type that's on there, and they could say, look, we're really not seeing any problems with these, and then I'd let them go.
Good deal. Okay, Kevin, I really appreciate it, man. I've taken up a lot of your time today, but thank you so much for all the guidance. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Today... This doesn't happen often, but today was one of those days I really didn't want to go to work. That doesn't happen often for me. I love what I do. I've been pushing things lately, both physically and mentally, working on projects. And then in the weekend and the off hours, I'm doing a lot of physical stuff. And Lisa and I, over the last 2 weekends back to back, have had parties here at the house. And when we do a party, there's a lot of work with food. We do a lot. Lisa really did most of it the last 2 weeks, but I've been out in the garden a lot. I pushed and pushed and pushed, and I'm at a point now where I'm not recovering well. I need to take some time off and work on the stress protocol again and get back to doing that and kind of recover some. So I went through all that to say I really didn't feel like working this morning, and that's unusual, but I'm so glad I did. 2 great calls today. I love those kind of calls. Somebody who has worked through the process and is seeing the advantages already, and somebody just getting started on the process, but somebody who's had already done a lot of the hard work and had a really solid plan. So I'm glad I came to work today. Let's see. I will wait just a minute or two to see if we get any other calls. And if not, I might just take it easy today. Who knows? Maybe I'll, I have so much to do, but maybe I'll take the rest of the day and start working on the stress protocol again and try to start recovering. I've pushed just a little too far this time. So a couple things I could talk about while I'm waiting for just a couple minutes. Looking at some indicators for what might happen with the freight market, and I was looking at FreightWave sonar on their containers, and it looks like container volume has already peaked. They've been warning us that it looked like we were going to have a very weak peak season, but it looks like it was even worse than what they were predicting. And container volume really has a big impact on our freight volumes as well. So that's not a good sign. It might indicate that we actually haven't found the bottom of the freight market. And I don't believe we have. One of the reasons I don't believe, for a while there, I thought maybe we were finding a bottom. But the more I go over numbers like Matt's even, and I see how strong some of these rates still are. Matt is still making if I remember right, 271 or 274 a mile, all miles. That's not a freight recession, not a full-blown freight recession. I get it. Rates are down in a lot of places. Volumes are down. And we were kind of bouncing along what I thought was the bottom. I don't think that it is. All right, calls are starting to pile up, so I should probably go to those. Let's go to Pennsylvania. Dan, welcome to the program.
Yes, hello, Kevin. Glad to be talking to you.
What's on your mind today?
I missed most of your show today, but I just thought I'd call in with something that you talk about a lot, about building relationships. And I hear some of the guys calling, complaining about shops, and yeah, occasionally there's an issue, but there's 2 shops I've built relationships with near me, and it's taken 10 years. The one's about 15 I've dealt with them. And one of the things I've enjoyed a lot about that, well, they both know where I live, so that's an advantage, but I can drop a truck off, they can fix it, and I can pick it back up. I mean, they tell me it's done, that's why I pick it up, but having paid the bill, they know I'll stop in because I'm close, and if they wanted to, they could come knock on my door. And just how nice that's been, that relationship, that I can pick it up after their hours are done and stop back and pay the bill, and not that they're holding my truck ransom till they get their money. That's really been nice.
There are so many advantages to building good business relationships, and you're outlining some for a shop. It makes everything work better. It just really does.
And on the customer side, I pull customer freight, which is stressful because it makes taking time off hard, because if I don't take care of them, they're going to go somewhere else. But my one customer for 3 years now has given me an end of the year Christmas bonus that is $1 makes it a 5-figure bonus.
Wow.
It's an unbelievable blessing.
That's incredible. And again, that's the kind of stuff that, when I talk about building relationships with brokers or customers or shops, I get all kinds of pushback. Oh, they're just dirtbags. Oh, they don't want to build a relationship anyway. If I come across somebody in business that is not interested in building a relationship and we're going to be able to do business together, then I just move on. Anybody in business not willing or excited about building relationships, well, then I don't want to deal with them anyway. And you do have to go find the customers and the shops, and it's hard work. And most people won't bother. And I'll have people call me and they'll go, I've been through all 4 shops that are near my house. There's only 4 shops within 60 miles. I've been to all 4 of them. They all suck. Okay, well, then you're going to have to find number 5 then. And if 5 doesn't work, then you're going to have to find number 6. And if you can't find one within 60 miles, I guess you're going to have to go out to 80 miles or 100. Or if you're really serious about succeeding in business, you might even move. And people think, move? Are you crazy? I've moved businesses several times to create advantages. I moved my trucking business out of Ohio to Florida for several business advantages, and they all paid off.
Yeah. Mine was a little different in that I've kind of developed my business around what I'm seeing in my area, what the freight is, and say, instead of just like, I'm only going to pull this trailer, that's what I'm going to do, as some guys are. I'm like,
right.
Well, no, for me, it's like, well, they need this. They need this type of trailer. So, okay, that's what I've got, and that's what I service them. The customer, like the type of businesses I'm seeing around me.
Yep.
And that's what I've been doing for about 15 years now.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Great stuff. We are going to head off to Texas. Mark, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning. I didn't expect to get in this quick. I was going to try to get into the Twitter Spaces on Friday, but it was like you gave the 4-minute warning, and I'm like, I don't know. Paul said you went on for another 30 minutes, but I was like, I got to go pressure wash underneath this damn truck. So it wasn't getting any cooler.
I got to get the Spaces thing under control. I get sucked into these conversations, and then I the other day, I forget what day it was, Wednesday maybe, I was actually live for 6 hours straight with I had the 15-minute break in between the live show and the space to get the space set up. But I went 6 hours with no breaks. And like I said, I'm not getting other projects done. I'm not getting other work done. I enjoy it, but I've got to get those things under control. And I several times I'll say, all right, it's the 2-minute warning. And then the next day I know I look up and I'm 20 minutes later again.
Well, think of it this way: you're building relationships.
I guess so. You're right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like if more people jump in and it keeps going, well, then it kind of like you're drawing more people in. So I look at that as a good thing. If you were able to continue with uninterrupted for that long, it's like I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
Anyway,
like I said, it's good and I enjoy it, but I at some point I got to get a little control over those and get back to work.
Yeah, a little more organization, but that'll come.
Yeah.
So it's the second half of the year. It started really a week ago, and or a little more than a week ago, and I always like to look at my numbers from the end of and this goes back to, they were talking on the Spaces about building relationships, and this one guy was like, he didn't really buy into it, Mac or whatever. And, but I can tell you right now, as somebody who's made every mistake in the book, and I've told you that, like, okay, so as of the 30th of June, 59,008 miles is what I've done. And that's on 216,000 of revenue for 3.67 cents a mile on all miles, because I just track all miles. I just went back and pulled up my ELD from the January 1st to the 30th, and I just divided it out. And here's another interesting number here. So my revenue a year ago at this point was 227. However, when you go back this year and you look at the fuel a year ago was 49,000 and change, 49,600. And this year it's 39,787. And keep in mind, these people I pull for, predominantly I get a fuel surcharge on my rates. So I'm off the revenue by about 10,000 and fuel's off by about 10,000. So I'm kind of on the same track as I was last year to, if it keeps up, to knock it out. And I don't say this on here to brag about myself, but because I owe everything that I do right now to listening to you, my friendship with Paul, my relationship with Pittsburgh Power, my relationship with David Counts, the OPS, everything, MD alignment. And, I'm just saying this because it can be done, even in a bad market. I mean, granted, I'm doing cars, but I mean, and here's another thing. Last Thursday, I dropped off at the New Orleans airport some rental cars, and there was nothing. All the manufacturers are closed for a week or two right now because they're retooling their new models. And so I had to come back from New Orleans to Houston, the Houston area empty. And I got back late that night, and I'm like, I feel like such a loser. I came back empty. That's the first time I came back empty since like ever. I mean, even when I was doing the shit crap that I was doing before any of this, I never came back empty. And I came back empty, and I was like, I felt like the loneliest guy on earth.
I'll bet.
So,
yeah.
And it just made me, it really pissed me off because I want to win. I'm in it to win it. And I say it really pissed me off. It just was a bad feeling. And it's like, I don't want to feel that way again. I felt like I lost.
Yeah, so you'd rather go do the hard work so you don't have to feel like that. Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just one of those things. It was just the time of the year when I took the load. I thought, well, something will show up. And I got over there, and it's like, we don't have anything. We don't have anything. I mean, I could go over here. It didn't make financial sense. I ran every scenario I could possibly do. Yeah, I was like thinking about going over and going down to Florida and come back with something out of Brunswick, but that disappeared. And it was just like, well, it just makes better sense to go back and pressure wash on Friday. So that's what I did. And I'm going back out to start it all over again this morning. But, yeah.
I saw a statistic this morning that has to have an impact on what you're doing, and maybe we're already seeing some of it. If I remember right, the statistic was lease turn-ins are down 83%. People are not turning in their leases at the end of leases the way they used to. They used to turn in the lease and just go get a new one, and that is now down 83%.
Well, and that's probably because there's such a shortage, and they were probably paid so much they figure they might as well just pay it off. I don't know, because the car market got upside down. But that other side of the industry, the spot market's all upside down right now. It's in turmoil. It's as much turmoil as the freight side right now.
Yeah, it's a mess because there is freight involved, so it's a mess like every other freight segment. But then cars themselves are a big thing. You know, what people do with cars. Are they buying new cars? Are they turning in their leases? That has a huge impact on our economy and on, that segment of the trucking market. And you are correct. I forget what year. So this last vehicle we bought was the first time I've ever done a vehicle lease. I was never wild about leases. They will almost always end up costing you a little more money. And the thing with leases, people just tend to keep releasing, and that's where it really gets expensive to lease. Whereas I typically buy vehicles and then keep them a very long time. One of the reasons we decided to lease this one, I'm at a place in my life where those kind of financial decisions just aren't as much of a big deal as they used to be. If I spend a little more money on a vehicle, it's okay. The other reason was I was really thinking, and this goes back to 2017 or 18 when we bought this last vehicle, was that I didn't want to buy a vehicle that I was going to keep a long time because I was really thinking about buying an electric vehicle. I've changed my mind. I will do everything I can to resist electric vehicles now because of what they're doing and how they're pushing it. It just pisses me off. So I'm not going down the road of the electric vehicles. But I got completely lucky just timing. We actually did a single payment lease for 4 years. So we wrote them a check and had the vehicle for 4 years. And it significantly reduced the cost, obviously, because there's no interest or time value in the lease payment. At that point, we were able to negotiate a pretty significant discount. Then when the vehicle came up and the lease was over, we were, if I remember right, we were like $12,000 over market value. I would have been insane not to buy that vehicle out. So then we just bought out the rest of the lease, and we still have it. But you're right, a lot of that could have been going on. People had so much equity if they just buy out the lease that a lot of people may have chosen to do that. But then that does have an impact on the market.
So here's something interesting. Friday, the other day, Wednesday, I took that load to New Orleans Airport. It was rental cars, and it went to one of the major companies. It was 9 Hyundai Kona e-cars. 9. I mean, I've never taken a full load of 9 cars. But apparently the rental car companies are getting a tremendous amount of electric vehicles, because I'm going to California with my daughter a week from Wednesday, and I was going to rent a car. And you have your choice of a regular car or an e-car. And you do in Europe, too, because I priced them for later this year, rental cars over there. You have a choice of a diesel or an e-car. And apparently the rental car companies are buying, I would say they're probably buying the bulk of the cars now, because I've never taken 9 e-cars anywhere. It's
that's
always
a lot,
too.
Yeah. The other thing I read this morning,
and then
I follow a couple car guys. Now, the car guys I follow are actually dealer consultants. So these are guys that buy and sell or broker car dealerships. So they're watching the market from that side of things, from a dealer's perspective. And the reports I've been seeing for the last several months is that all these electric cars are sitting. Nobody's buying them. So maybe the rental car companies are snatching them up. But from what I gather, the electric car sales are not as much as they expected they were going to be.
Well, these are coming from the factory, and it's, these of course, these are made in Korea, and they come over, and it's like that. I mean, they're going directly, not even going to the dealership or whatever. They're just going. And it's like, I'm not surprised that they're sitting, because it's like, where are you gonna charge that? I mean, there's a lot of charging stations. I mean, I saw one. I went to see the movie yesterday, and it was like there was a charging station right there. I heard this noise. What's this buzzing? Yeah. Oh, it's the e-car charging station.
I am probably the ideal person to buy an electric vehicle. I would charge it at home. I would just put in home charging. I do live in a state that, even though I'm in a tiny, tiny little town, we don't have a traffic light, but we do have a charging lot. There are several chargers right here in town I could use. I could use home. I don't commute. I don't really travel much, and when I do, it's either very short distance, fairly local, or I'm just gone out on the country traveling. I could buy an electric vehicle, and it would be almost ideal for me. It would probably work really well. But I'm not going to. Again, I was planning on it. I hate the way they're pushing this. But here's something else that I've said. If I were to buy an electric vehicle, there's only one I would even consider, and it's a Tesla. And the only reason is because all of these other cars have 0 track records. These are all brand new models. And this is a radical change in car building. I don't trust most of these new electric cars on the market. And there's already some evidence we're going to start seeing new problems with vehicles. I follow another guy who does a lot of towing. He owns a towing company. And he has towed back in, I forget how many, of the new Amazon electric vans. And the CV joints are failing really quickly. And they can't get new CV joints, so these things are being parked. That's the kind of stuff I would stay away from. These new vehicles are going to have problems. These companies, I mean, when have you ever seen a car company put out 5 brand new models in 1 year? Never. Nobody ever does that. But Mercedes and BMW just released 5 brand new electric vehicles. Oh, hell no, I'm not buying one of those things.
I've hauled those before, and they weigh 5,000 to 6,000 pounds. They're heavy. They're heavy, way more than a pickup truck.
Yeah, no way am I buying one of those. Tesla has got a gazillion miles of real world experience, and their vehicles are pretty reliable. But I don't trust anybody else's right now.
Now, here's another thing to think about in the whole scheme of the economy with cars and all like that. So here in America, we don't have trains. We drive. We drive everywhere. We'll drive around the corner to borrow a cup of sugar.
Yeah.
There are so many vehicles on the road, you have to think of the attrition rate, besides just people buying them. One of the things that happened during COVID when they shut all the manufacturers down and why the cars just ran out is because the attrition rate. People didn't stop wrecking cars. Cars didn't stop wearing out. Cars didn't stop just completely failing and wrecking. And it was just the attrition rate from the point of view of the vehicles is just there's a certain amount out there that has to be replaced every year. And and the one thing I've learned in this side of the hauling cars and coming from working in the energy industry is there's two industries that run the economy in America: the automobiles and the energy. There are so many jobs. It's not just hauling cars; it's making cars. It's the parts to make the cars. It's everything to do with energy. And energy takes energy to build cars. Those two industries right there run the economy. And when you just think about the scope and size of each one of them from A all the way to Z through the supply chain, it's amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot going on and a lot happening. It's really hard to predict where we're going. So many old patterns are now changing.
And I just don't see the autonomous. I tagged you in a Twitter post that they've learned to put cones out in San Francisco on some autonomous vehicles and cause them to be immobilized.
Yeah, that's
just
crazy.
A regular old construction cone. They place they put it on there, and it's like they're just the bums that go around and put it on there, and then the car can't do anything. So I'm sure that wasn't thought about when they were making these.
But I guess I don't understand the point. They're doing this on a parked car?
Yeah, because it can't go anywhere.
Well, I know, but all I have to do
is somebody has to come out and take somebody. If it's an autonomous car, so somebody has to come out.
Okay, I thought they were doing it on things like Teslas, where you have self-driving mode.
No. Those fully autonomous vehicles they got running around San Francisco. They're going around putting cones on there, that's screwing it up, and they can't. It's immobilizing them.
Now that makes sense. See, that's the kind of stuff nobody ever thinks of.
They didn't think about this when they made those. Nobody thought about that.
Nope.
I mean, and that's what you get with new types of products. It's like they think of a lot of things and designs and where to put things and all like that, but they didn't think of everything.
Yeah, no,
and it just takes one of these things to disrupt it.
Yep, I agree. All right, good stuff.
I mean, that just shows you we're even from. Okay, have a good one.
Yeah,
thanks.
We are. We don't have to be a long way away from this. We could have done this much better, but this whole green push from the government is going to screw all of this up. And that's their plan. Let's go to Illinois. Dale, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. I had a question about my blood sugar. I tell you what I have going on. About a week and a half ago, I went to get my medical card renewed, and I had forgot to get it renewed before it expired, so I got a phone call from my wife, and she kind of laid into me about being irresponsible about that. And of course, that got me upset, and this and that, and then we were trying to find a place for me. I was driving, of course, to try to get it done, and I found a place, and I went in there. Long story short, I didn't pass. They said that my blood pressure was like 170 over something. I can't remember what the bottom number was. My blood sugars were over 250, and she said I had a 3+ glucose in my urine, and I didn't pass my vision test. So the doctor let me sit there for 10 minutes and tried to calm down or whatever, but I was already upset because I was wanting to get it passed, and maybe my wife kind of got into it a little bit over it, and I didn't pass again. So then it probably took a week before I could get another appointment. I got another appointment, and my blood pressure went down to 138 over 73, and my sugars are at 143, and I passed that vision test. Can you tell me why it was all over the board like that? In the meantime, I also I went to an eye doctor, got my eyes checked out. They said I didn't need glasses. I passed all the vision tests that they gave me. Why was I all over the board like that?
Well, let's start with the vision. Both the blood pressure and the blood sugar could have affected it. So if you've been, there's only two possibilities here. One, they didn't know how to give the test properly, or those things were affecting your vision. There's not a lot we're going to do with vision right now, so let's just set that one aside. Let's focus on the two real problems. Why are you all over the board? Because everybody always is. I mean, it's not unusual. I can increase somebody's blood pressure in 30 seconds. I could increase or change somebody's blood sugar in no time. These two numbers can be all over the board. Now, we want them to be more consistent. There's really only one way to do it. And I'm pretty sure if you listen to the show, you know what I'm going to say.
Diet?
Yeah, that's it. If your blood sugar and blood pressure are out of control, then your diet is out of control.
Well, I've talked to you earlier about weight loss, and I started at 335 pounds, and I'm now down to 270.
Excellent. But let's stop for just a second. What would you consider your normal, healthy body weight to be?
Oh my gosh, I really don't know. I would like to get down to 200, but that's probably not the question you're asking.
No, it's absolutely the question I'm asking. Yeah, what do you think based on your height, your physique, all of those things, what do you think your ideal body weight is? And I mean perfect.
I'll around 220.
Okay. So you're still 70 pounds overweight. I mean, there's no way. What you're doing is fantastic, and you should keep doing it. But the reason we're all over the board on these numbers is you still got a ways to go.
Oh, I agree 100%.
And here's one of the things I know. If you can achieve a blood sugar of 250, you've got a problem. I don't think it would be possible for me. I think I could start consuming sugar, and my body would deal with the sugar to a point where I would never, ever be able to get my number that high, no matter how hard I tried. So when I see those numbers, it tells me that you are still very, very insulin resistant. And that will fix itself over time.
My wife has checked my blood sugar before this. She's diabetic, so this has been years ago, but she had checked my sugars right after I had drank a soda, and it never changed.
You're diabetic, by the way.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because in that meantime, before I passed my physical, we had been monitoring my sugar. Her and I have been, and it fluctuates between about 138 to 143 after 2 hours after every meal. And she said that's really, really good. But it's still not.
Well, first off, it's not really, really good. It's not at all.
Well,
hold on. I understand, but you're taking advice about diabetes from a diabetic. If they understood diabetes, they wouldn't be diabetic. There is no reason for anybody to be a type 2 diabetic. None. The only reason is what we put in our mouth every day. So she is being coached by doctors who are telling her, oh, these are good numbers. You have your diabetes under control. We don't want diabetes under control. We don't want diabetes, period. So 2 hours after a meal, 140 is not a good number. That is telling me you are diabetic. Anybody who can show up at 250 is diabetic. We should never go above 140, ever. If we're above 140, we are now doing damage to our body. You had 2 readings that were both fasting, right? Your doctor's doing these fasting, aren't? So you were 250 fasting. That is full-blown diabetic.
No, the doc. When I went in there, I need to tell you, when she asked me if I had ate anything, and about an hour before I came in there, I had lunch about an hour before I did go in.
This whole process is ignorant. There is no way they should take your blood sugar unless it's fasting. If they're taking your blood sugar in anything other than a fasted state, it's worthless information. Unless we do a full-blown insulin challenge, where we set a baseline, we take it 1 hour after we eat, 2 hours after we eat, 3 hours after we eat. And I know doctors aren't doing that, but for a doctor to have somebody walk in, pull a blood sugar reading without fasting is a total waste of time. Now, it does tell me something, again, whether you ate or not. There's no way you should be able to register 250. That in my mind makes you diabetic, that one number alone. The next time you were at 143. Again, you're still extremely elevated for a fasting number. And if you weren't fasting, then we just throw it out because it's worthless information. Here's what I would recommend you do. I would recommend you get a continuous glucose monitor.
Okay.
Then you'll know you're diabetic and you'll see everything that's impacting it. And unless you and it sounds to me like you have radically changed your diet. You've lost a lot of weight. You need to continue with that, and you may even want to change it more. Because here again, what did you have for lunch that put you at 250? Tell me what the meal was.
I had a cheeseburger and fries, and a 20-ounce soda. The day I went in to get my physical.
So how did you lose 70 pounds?
Well, I cut out all my grains, mostly my breads.
Well, wait, hold on.
I
probably
stopped.
Hold on.
And I knocked out about
hold on.
80%
words matter in the way you knocked out all of your grains, you said, and then most of your breads. Are you eating grain-free bread?
Well, yes, they're one and the same. No, they're one and the same, yes.
Oh, so that's
right.
That's an incorrect statement. And when people say that, it makes me suspect everything they're saying. We tend to be very loose with the facts. So a burger, was that with a bun?
That was just a cheeseburger and a bun and French fries.
Yeah, not just a cheeseburger. It was a cheeseburger on a bun, French fries, and a soda, which is the definition of the standard American diet. Fast food with all the garbage.
Correct.
So as long as you keep doing that, you can tell me the last time you had it. It was that day.
Well, no, before that. That's what I'm saying.
Well, stop it, because something is keeping you diabetic. Your number, and as long as you keep doing this once in a while kind of stuff, and sodas and French fries and burgers with buns, and you will remain diabetic. And every time you go back to get your physical card, this is what you're going to deal with.
Well, and I agree 100%. It's 100% my fault. I got myself into this, and I'm trying to get myself out of it. And I know I got to work harder on my diet as well. Is there any type of like a verb? I thought I heard you say that like Burberry or something like that.
We'll stop for a second. There is no supplement that will allow you to not change your diet dramatically. None. Berberine, with the way you're eating, is going to do almost nothing.
Okay.
How long has your wife been diabetic?
She's been diabetic since 2002.
20 plus years. Now, I'm sure she's on multiple drugs.
Oh my gosh, she is, and I don't want to get to her point. I told the doctor I do not want to go that route.
So if there are no drugs that can cure diabetes, there are absolutely no supplements that can cure diabetes. The only thing that cures diabetes is diet, nothing else. Okay. Now, once you get your diet right, then there are supplements that can make things better. But that's all they do. They can't solve the problem on their own ever. We have no supplements in the store that really solve a problem. They supplement a good diet. That's why we call them supplements.
Okay.
So yes, Berberine is the supplement you're thinking of that you've heard me talk about. And it is a very, very simple, single nutrient. It comes from a berry. It's very natural. It is effective at controlling blood sugar, but I don't want to sell somebody Berberine if they're not going to change their diet.
Right. Well, this whole ordeal has been a wake-up call. I was pretty much scared to death whenever they told me those numbers.
Good.
And, it was a great wake-up call.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was.
And that's good. I mean that's sometimes that's what we need. We just need to, because here's the thing. You did make some pretty drastic changes. I know you did if you lost 70 pounds. But I think what started happening is you started thinking that, oh, look, this is wonderful. I can eat a burger and fries and soda again. No, you can't. Not ever. Not ever. I will tell you that. If you want to be healthy, the food we eliminate out of our diet to lose weight and get healthy should never, ever come back into our diet.
Okay.
This is permanent. The only exception, I will make an exception to what I just said. We do eliminate fruit. We eliminate natural sweeteners, maple sugar, honey. We eliminate those in the beginning. Once you get metabolically healthy, I believe it is okay to add some of that back in small amounts. I've been doing it for years. I eat fruit every day. I eat a little bit of honey every day. But you really shouldn't do those things until you get metabolically healthy. And then we should bring them back in very, very small amounts. But you will never, ever see me drink a soda, eat a burger with bun. I really try to avoid eating French fries out. I will make some French fries at home because I can handle some potatoes. But the problem out is French fries just as bad or worse than the soda, because it's high carb and it's cooked in horrible seed oils.
I never thought about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've made the statement, I think grains are the worst thing in the American diet for our health, but there are lots of doctors now, Dr. Mercola, several others, who actually believe seed oils are the worst thing in our diet.
Well, I want to ask you about the glucose monitor. How does that work? Is that something you wear on your wrist, or
you attach like a little disc. It's a little flat disc, and it comes with this device, and you attach it to a fatty part of your body. Some of them recommend like on the belly. The one I use recommends the back of your arm, where you've got some fat there. It's a tiny, tiny little thread-like needle that goes into your skin. You don't even feel it when it goes on. And then it's adhesive so that it sticks there. And each sensor lasts for 2 weeks. There are 3 different, there may be more, but there are 3 companies I'm aware of: Dexcom, NutriSense, and I'm drawing a blank on the other. Libre, Freestyle Libre. Those are the 3 types of sensors on the market. They're all virtually identical. The sensors are almost identical. The software for each one is a little different. So each sensor lasts 2 weeks. You install it, and then you don't have to do finger sticks anymore. That sensor monitors your blood sugar in real time for 2 weeks straight, and you scan it with your phone, and it tells you your blood sugar every 15 minutes.
I'll be darned. Okay.
So you can check your blood sugar 100 times a day if you want. You never have to poke yourself again.
Okay. And so how can I follow? Can I just follow up with you like weekly, or how?
Yes.
Because I like to keep.
Yeah, and if you get a continuous glucose monitor, and you can, before you call each day or when you call, have a PDF version, or most of the apps I've seen, like NutriSense, you can share your information right out of the app pretty easily. If you're willing to do that, when you call, you could send me that right then, and I'll go over those results with you. Now, here's the other thing. The app is also going to allow you to enter everything you eat. And I'm not a big believer in we should be writing all this stuff down and tracking and measuring. That's a pain in the ass. I don't think, but for a limited period of time, I do recommend it. There's a lot we can learn. And then after a while, you learn all this stuff. You don't need to keep doing it the rest of your life. But if you are really accurate about putting all your food in there, and then you send me that data, I can tell you exactly what's going on with your blood sugar.
That's with the NutriSense one, or is that with them all?
Any of them. Yeah, and I will tell you, go back to your doctor first and see if he'll write you a prescription, because then insurance will pay for it.
Okay.
So I like NutriSense, and we don't have a formal partnership. There's no money changing hands, but I like NutriSense, so we bring them on the show, and they share data with me. So it's just a good partnership for us. So I like when people use NutriSense, but it's fairly expensive. And if you can get this done through insurance, you should. Because like I said, all the sensors are the same.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right. I'll look forward to hearing back from you. Congratulations on the work you've done. Don't give up yet. Don't backslide yet. Let's, Paul, looks like you're going to get the final word today. What's on your mind?
Oh, carnivore. No, for that last guy, hardcore carnivore. That's what he needs to do.
Works every time. Yep. Works every time.
Yeah. So,
speaking of hardcore carnivore, I say all the time that my meat now, all of my animal products, 90, maybe even 95% is all regenerative, grass-fed. There are a couple exceptions, and I just wasn't thinking, and I knew we had a big party and we were cooking for like 7 people, and I forgot to order steaks for this party from my normal sources. And by the time I realized that it was too late, and I thought, all right, I'm going to run to Costco. It's not the best beef in the world, but they usually have, I wanted to do big, thick tomahawk ribeyes for the fun of it. Well, I got there too.
Did you find some lamb chops from New Zealand?
I love lamb chops from New Zealand. It's one of my favorite foods. But no, I didn't get those. They didn't have any tomahawks. It was too late in the day. They didn't have any good-looking steaks. So I ended up buying the whole primal, like a 19-pound ribeye, the whole cut. And then I cut all my own steaks. They were incredible. Yep. I was cutting like 4-inch steaks. They were, so one steak was like 3 meals. They were so big. But they cook so well when you cut them that thick. And we got to say, I haven't talked about this much, but Lisa got me a big green egg for my birthday this year, and not the very, very biggest one, but the next step down. I love that thing by far. And in my lifetime, I've had every kind of grill you could possibly imagine. Electric, propane, infrared, pellet grills, smokers, just everything you can imagine for outdoor cooking. I've had it. And hands down, I love this big green egg.
Good deal. My neighbor has one of those. He brags about it too. So.
I can get the inside of that grill, and it's not even that hard, to 1,000 degrees.
Oh, you cook your DPF filter in there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Another use for the big green egg.
There you go.
So, I went to work last Wednesday. I deadheaded from my house in Oklahoma, which is just south of Oklahoma City, and I deadheaded right down to Freeport, Texas, which is the best part of 500 miles. Picked up a load that went to Broken Arrow in Tulsa. Delivered that on Thursday. Went deadhead back all the way back down to Freeport, Texas. Loaded another load that came to Midwest City, Oklahoma, but I brought it to my house on Saturday. So 12 hours Wednesday, 12 hours Thursday, 12 hours Friday, 5 hours Saturday, 3 hours this morning to leave home, go deliver it, and come back home. So I got about 44 hours of work time, 50% empty, $6,510, $2,200 miles roughly, $294 a mile, 50% empty. Pretty happy with that. So
yeah.
I'll continue doing that this week.
Yeah. Like I said, we are in a weird situation. We're clearly in a freight recession. We're looking for a bottom. All the numbers are down, except not for everybody. There are a lot of people that it seems like they've just chosen not to participate in this freight recession. And you sound like you're one of them.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
Yeah. You're just going to skip this one.
I don't participate in recession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Because this is contract freight. The fuel surcharge money, it changes, but I don't care. It says the fuel price. So we're good. I can keep money. I 50% empty and nearly $3 a mile. I can make money out of that. So.
That's for sure.
And I only had to load and unload 20 vehicles to do that. So
wow.
Yeah. So I met a guy the other night. He's leased onto the same company I'm leased onto. I've seen him around before, but never really talked to him. So we get talking on Friday night, and he's like, "Oh, so that's how you get 10 of those little SUVs on?" Yeah. And he's like, "I think I'll ask for another one." I said, "Well, what year's your trailer?" Well, he has a 2020 trailer. Well, they made some modifications on it, but I've made modifications on my trailers so I can do the 10-unit load. And I said, "You won't fit them on." And I showed him why. "Oh, well, what if I loaded it like this?" I said, "It won't work. You won't get it low enough loading it like that." Oh, okay. So then we start talking about trucks. He's got a Cummins powered, just like me, 600. And he says, "So what are you getting for fuel mileage?" I said, "Oh, I'll bring it up on your app. 90-day average, 5.51. And he goes, "Wow."
Wow,
is
right.
About a mile point, 1.2. He's like, he says, "I'm at 4.3. I said, "What?" I said, "You go to the poorhouse, dude." So I worked it out on 120,000 miles at $3 a gallon. It's 18,300. You go into the.
I just started to do the math, right? And you already did it for me, so thank you. That's exactly what I was going to do. You two could do the exact same amount of work, and you will get paid $18,000 more to do it.
Which is $1,530 a month.
A month?
Yeah.
A month.
So
that's a lot.
Yeah, that's why I only. Yeah, that's why I only have to work 3 hours today. So I'll leave. I got to go to the grocery store, go to the bank, and cook my food to go tomorrow.
So
I'll leave tomorrow.
Let's think about
back
something.
On Saturday.
Let's think about something. I've talked about this idea before. I developed this a long, long time ago. I called it the $1 million idea. And it was one of the first times that fuel had hit like $4 a gallon. And I calculated and I said, look, if you could get 1 more mile per gallon, and this is an average, I could put $1 million in retirement account for you. And it's just from the savings alone. You don't have to give up anything. You don't have to sacrifice. Just get better fuel economy and then put the savings in the bank. The savings at that time was only $400 a month. On $400 a month, you could end up with $1 million in your retirement account over a career. Now, you're $1,500 a month. That's 4 times almost.
Nearly 4 times.
Nearly 4 times more.
Yeah.
So if you were to take all of that savings over your career, you could put $3 to $4 million in your retirement account.
Oh, I'll be good with $1 million. I'll probably spend the other couple of having fun.
There you go. That's right.
So then I said to him, I said, I got to fire up my generator. Oh, you got a generator? Yeah. Where? I said, because I got it hiding behind a Peterbilt mud flap, and I pull the mud flap up and pull the string on the Honda, and well, I said, so you going down to the port? This is Friday night. I said, so you headed down to the port tomorrow to load? And he's like, no, I got to do a 34-hour break. Well, the very next exit down the road, there's a Super 8 and some other motel. I would have been going down to the motel. I'm pretty sure he probably idled for the whole 34 hours because it's pretty hot in Texas in July.
Exactly. So this is another one I've talked about for years, and people push back. I am shocked. We tried partnering with the company one time that did discount hotel rooms. And it was all kinds of different hotels, and you get pretty decent discount. And we were going to partner with them. I thought it would have been the greatest thing ever. Nobody cared. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute. I do these guys accounting. Nobody ever spends any money on hotels. I had a huge hotel bill when I drove. There was no way I was living in that cab over Astro. If I was down for more than 8 hours, I got a room. Exactly. I got a room. And I don't understand why people are so hesitant on a reset, or you're going to be off for a couple of days waiting on something. Go get a room. It's cheap. You have air conditioning. You have a heat. You have a nice, comfortable bed. You have a TV.
Probably have a swimming pool.
A gym and a pool. And exactly. Just get away from the truck for a little while.
And that very next exit down, it's in Fairfield, Texas on I-45. The very next exit down from the TA, there's 2 motels there, and there's always trucks parked there in the motels. So they can't be that expensive. So,
and you have parking.
Crazy.
There's another way to deal with the parking issue. You go to a hotel, you usually have parking. I just don't understand why people, they'll go spend money on factoring. They'll go spend money on dispatch services. They'll pay somebody to do their accounting. They'll pay somebody to do their fuel tax. They won't spend a couple bucks to be comfortable in a room.
Yeah. So anyway, I gassed up my Honda generator on the way home. I got an auxiliary tank. So I squeezed right to the top and $19.04 to stay cool for 3 nights last week. So pretty cheap.
There you go.
So, yeah. So I have one other question.
Sure.
My new trailer, when I get it, so do I depreciate a trailer for 3 years or 5 years?
Oh, good question. A trailer happens to be 5, and you can't do it for 3. If you were to ever try to do it for 3 and they caught you, you would end up paying back some money in interest and penalties. Tractors are 3 years, trailers are 5.
Okay, right. I wasn't sure. I thought it was.
Yep, good
5,
question.
But I wasn't 100%. Okay, carry on. I'll be listening tomorrow.
Thanks for the call. All right, we are going to wrap this up today. I've got some projects I've got to go catch up on. I'm behind on a bunch of reading. I should get caught up. Summertime's tough. There's just so much else I want to do. And this week, maybe I'll go look right now. This week, as soon as I get caught up on a couple things, I am going to pull out all the wing foil equipment, and I'm going to start watching for a good day. Let me see what the forecast says. Let's see. Today does not look good at all. Looks kind of nasty out there. It's a little cloudy. Gonna have some winds, though. Ooh, looking at 20 to 30 knots. Some strong winds today. Not good for all the fires here. Actually, looks like it might be a good week. So I may be out on the water this week. We'll see. Not today. Too much to do, but start keeping an eye on it tomorrow. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. We will see you back here tomorrow. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.